Hey everyone, it's TK Friday, my favorite day of the week. The title of today's episode is Complementary Contrast, Color and Tone. Stay tuned. Hello everyone, it's TK Friday. Thanks for joining me. I am glad you're here. Today's image comes from Stanley Jacobson. Thank you very much, Stanley. You can download this image. I'll have a link to my Dropbox where you can get it, along with the linear profile. I'm also going to be adding some sharpening to this, so I'm going to have the raw file as well as a sharpened file after the initial editing in Lightroom, so you could get either one of the files or both. If you don't yet have the TK8 plugin for Photoshop, I'll leave a link for it in the description below this video. You can use my promo code DK15 and save an additional 15% off anything on Tony Kuiper's website. That includes the TK8 plugin for Photoshop as well as training videos. Hey, also, if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, please subscribe and click the bell notification icon. That way you'll be notified every time I put up a new tutorial. It really helps my YouTube channel and it really helps promote me on YouTube. And like also, that really helps me as well. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. I really appreciate it. And please leave comments and questions. I really love hearing from each and every one of you. We are a community here on TK Fridays. All right, on to Stanley's image. Now, this is shot in, I believe, the Mojave Desert. Correct me if I'm wrong, Stanley, but we have some Joshua trees, and they're really cool-looking Joshua trees. And this image is very dark, and it's a single exposure. We don't have two separate images. I was thinking about double processing this, but I'll tell you what, with the power of linear profiles, you don't even have to do a double process in this image. You can just use one image file and get a really good edit. So we're starting out here in Lightroom, and as you can see, I have the default Adobe Color profile on here. And if I come down to lens corrections, I always like to have remove chromatic aberrations checked on and enable profile corrections checked on. And in terms of detail, I'm going to shut the sharpening off on this. And I have no noise reduction. I have a default setting of 25 on the color noise for noise reduction. Even though this image was shot at ISO 100, there will be some noise because we'll really be bringing up the shadows here in Lightroom. Now, I will be using, as I said, Topaz Sharpen AI to sharpen and denoise the image. If you don't have that, you can go ahead and denoise and sharpen right here in Lightroom. Okay, but all I'm going to do in Lightroom is, in the basic panel, first off, you can see the Adobe Color profile. If you'll notice, your shadows are really dark, but watch how they look after I put on the linear profile. See how the detail all comes back in the shadows, and this is the beauty of linear profiles. So if you haven't yet tried them, you definitely got to try them. And don't forget, they're free. I'll leave a link in the description below where you can pick them up from Tony Kuiper. And if he doesn't have your profile for your camera, request him to make you one and he will. After I've applied the linear profile, I'm going to simply click on Auto and look at the results I get. All of a sudden, like magic, the image just really comes back, which is really nice. So it came from here, and now it looks like this. So pretty nice. Now, sometimes I have to do some extra adjustments here after I click on Auto, but on this particular image, I'm going to leave it just the way it is. I think it's a great starting point. And now I'll simply right-click on my image, click on Edit in Photoshop 2022, and we will get started. Now, here we are in Photoshop, but before I do anything, you see right here, see this this little section here where you can see sky coming through. I'm going to go ahead and clone this boulder here and here and here just to clean that up a little bit. And also I have this light spot over here. I'm going to take care of that with a healing tool. But the first thing I'm going to do is create a blank layer above here. And to do that, we can click on this icon right here. That just puts a blank layer right above there. And with my spot healing tool, I want to make sure I have sample all layers checked. Now I have content aware as the type. All right, so I'm just going to take that healing tool and just paint over this area right here. Let's see if one paint does it. It's going to take two, and now I'm going to clone this area. I'm just going to go ahead and zoom in on this area here. That might be too much. Maybe right about there should be good. And now I'll be painting on this blank layer with my clone stamp tool, so just type S to get up your clone stamp tool, and I'm going to make my clone stamp tool smaller, and it has a pretty soft edge on it. And I'm going to sample from here and just start painting over and just filling in this area right in here. I just think that's going to look a little better. And let's come down here and I'll vary my size and just keep painting in, sampling from different areas. I'm coming from the tree at times, from the boulder, you know, trying to keep the colors lined up properly and coming in here. I mean, just take your time because cloning is an art. It takes some time to get it right, but it's important to sample from different areas in the area. And this brown area in here, I think I'm going to eventually get rid of. I'll be toning down my opacity to like around 30%, and I'll blend all this in. And right now I'm at 30%, and I'm just blending it in. And as soon as I think it looks right, I will stop. But I think I'm just about there. And right there, I think we're good. I'm going to go ahead and fit this to screen by clicking this icon on the CX panel. And yeah, let's take a look. Yeah, I think that looks good. I think it looks much better. Now here's without that cloning, and here it is with it. So I think it helps. Now at this point, I'm going to merge these layers down. To do that, I'll just right click on this layer and click on merge down. And now these two layers are merged together. The next thing I'm going to do is send this into Topaz Sharpen AI for sharpening and noise reduction. So I want to zoom way in here so you can really see it. Okay. And let me get an area. I'm zoomed in too far. Maybe around this tree right here. Zoom in a little bit more. But as you can see, there's a little bit of noise in there. See that noise in there? And I think we can sharpen this up a good bit. I'll zoom in just a little bit more, but yeah, you can really see that noise. And now I want to duplicate the background layer by clicking this icon on the CX panel. That just copies the background layer because I don't want to send the background layer into Sharpen AI in case I need to mask it or do anything with it. And now all I have to do is come up to my filter or use my TK action, which I've already made, which is right here, Sharpen AI. Or if you don't have that and you have Sharpen AI, you can come up here and find it under Topaz Lab Sharpen AI. But for me, I'm going to click on my action, and that'll send us right into Topaz Sharpen AI, and I'll sharpen it and denoise it. And here we are in Sharpen AI. Now, this is a TK Friday video, but I'm going to run this in Sharpen AI very quickly. I'll also link at the end of this video a video if you don't know how to make menu items for your TK8 CX or combo panel. And I'll also leave that link in the description below this video. I'm just using this motion blur, very blurry, remove blur with the auto settings, and it does a great job. I'll show you the result once I get back into Photoshop. I'm just going to click apply, and that'll send us back into Photoshop, and I'll meet you there. And now we're back in Photoshop, and I'm zoomed in to almost 300%, but you can see here is the before Sharpen AI, and here's the after. So as you can see, it does a really great job of sharpening this image up. And now we can go ahead and get started with the TK workflow. The first thing I want to do is darken the sky. Let me go ahead and get out of this color grading tool. I was using that on another image. We're going to come up to the luminosity masks, and what we want to do is we're going to use the lights one, but let's try our different channels. And don't forget, you have all these different channels here. And I've experimented, and I found that the blue channel makes my sky the lightest and my foreground the darkest. So check this out when I click on the blue. You see that, how that sky got lighter? Let me go back to RGB. And that's what we want. And now we're going to use a levels adjustment and just, make the sky a little bit lighter. So I'm going to take this highlight slider and drag it to the left just till that sky turns white. I don't want to go too crazy here. I'm going to leave a little bit of this mountain back in here, but maybe right around there. And then I'm going to take this midtone slider and drag it to the right just to darken up the foreground. I want to maintain a nice transition zone right in here, but I want my trees to be relatively dark so the adjustment doesn't go on to them. But I think right around there should be really good. Now, all I'm going to do at this point is apply this to a color grading tool. I'll simply click on this color grading tool icon. And now you can see that mask is attached to the color grading tool layer. Now, if you want to get a look at your mask, you can come and click the double arrow icon, and you can see there's our mask. Now, I would like this whole area here on the bottom to be black, and I'll take care of that in a second. But first, let's apply the color grading tool adjustment. So let's go ahead and click the double arrow again. And now I'm just going to simply click on this mid-tone gray block and take this slider and start to drag it into the left. And look how I just beautifully darken up my sky. Now I don't want to go too dark and make it look unnatural because it was pretty light out. So maybe somewhere right around there. Now here is the before and here's the after. But I'm going to clean up this bottom a little bit. So I'm going to X out of the color grading tool. I'm going to come up and click on this icon right here, and that lets us go into the layer mask mode where we can go ahead and work on our layer mask. And now I'll click on this double arrow just like we have in the CX and combo panel, and it shows me the mask, and I'll simply grab one of these tools, in my case the black brush, at 100% opacity, and I want to make my brush nice and big with a nice soft 0% hardness edge on it. And what I want to do here is simply paint out the bottom here, staying away from that transition zone, okay? Just so right like this. That's all I want to do, just like that. And now if we click on the double arrow, we can see. So now none of that area down there is going to be affected by the adjustment of the color grading tool. And then when we're done, we can just X out of this. And again, here is my before, and here's my after. But see how beautifully we were able to darken that sky and bring this image back into some sort of a balance. But we're not done yet. The next thing I want to do is lighten up some of these darker tones, like on these trees and all the areas in the foreground. And to do that, we're going to come back to luminosity masks and click right here. And I'm going to use a dark. So let's try. Here's a darks. 1. Not a bad selection. Now remember, I'm looking for all the darker tones and I'm selecting a lot of the sky. I don't want the sky. So let's go to 2. That's getting better. Let's try a 3. Now 3 is looking really good. Now let's try a blue channel and see what we get with a blue channel. Yeah, and that does a really nice job. Let's go back to RGB. And notice the darker areas in here. When I go to a blue channel, it's getting those a little bit better. And now I'm just going to get a levels adjustment. And let's click right here. This is so we can adjust our mask. And I'm just going to pull in the highlights a little bit, lighten that up, and then just pull in the midtone slider to the right and make sure that sky's nice and dark. And I think right about there looks pretty good. And I'm just going to simply output that again to a color grading tool. And to lighten up the darker areas, what I'll do is go to midtones again. I'll try that first, and I'm just going to lighten up all those darker areas by moving this to the right. And you see them lightening up like the tree and so on. And then I think I'll warm them a little bit as well because it's a nice warm desert scene. So I want a little bit of warmth. Now here is the before. And here is the after. So we're getting a nice warm glow, especially out here on these trees. And that's looking really good. I think that's a pretty good setting for now. We may come back and revisit it, but let's move on. Now for my next step, and if you watch my TK Friday videos, you know I like to do this. I'm going to X out the color grading tool, come back to luminosity masks and get a midtones 3 mask. I'll put that to a color grading tool. And this is going to protect my highlights and shadows from getting clipped. And I'm just going to build a little bit of contrast in here. It's already balanced pretty well, so I just want to build a little contrast. So I'm going to click on the shadow block first and move this to the left. And you'll notice I'm going to darken my shadows up a little bit. That's going to add some contrast. And I'm going to come to my highlights and lighten up the highlights a little bit, just to add some contrast there. And then I'm going to come to my midtones, and I think I may lighten up the midtone scene just a little bit. And I think that looks nice. Now here is the before, and here's after. But you see the nice contrast and the nice glow that I'm getting out in here. I think that looks really good. Again, here is the before, and here's the after. I get really excited when I'm working with the TK8 plugin for Photoshop. It really helps your editing in so many ways. The next thing I want to do is add a smart Orton effect to this, and I'm going to do it a little bit differently, so follow me here. So come to the TK Actions and find your smart Orton. Click on that, and we're going to take the Gaussian blur at default of 10 pixels on the radius and click OK. Now, I'm not going to touch anything inside of this Orton group here for adjustments, and we could if we needed to, but it's a very strong effect. So here's what I'm going to do. This is what's different. I'm going to put a black layer mask on this group by clicking this icon on my CX panel right here, and that hides the Orton effect, okay? And then what I want to do is come up and get a mids 3 mask just to tone down the Orton effect, but I want to base my adjustment off of the image before the Orton effect was added. So that's what the black mask is for. So now let's X out of this color grading tool, come up to luminosity masks, and let's get a mids 3, and we'll click this icon to apply it to the Orton group. And right there you can see it's a toned down effect. So here's what it looks like without the mask. So I have this Smart Orton group active. I'm going to click this red X. This is what it looks like without the mids 3 mask, and this is what it looks like with. So it's a lot more toned down, and that's nice, but I'm not done yet, because what I want to do is just paint this Orton effect in where I want it to go, and that's in the foreground. Like, I don't want it up in the sky. As you can see, if I shut this off right now, it's affecting the sky and everything. I only want it to affect this area down in here, so I want to hand paint it freeform in, okay? So what I'll do is group this group within a group. Okay, so I'm going to come up here. Now, you can get a group with a white mask or a black mask. I want a black hide-all mask, so I'm going to click the left side of this icon, and now everything is hidden. And now with the brush set at 50%, I'm just typing my 5 key on my keyboard. I'm just going to paint in the areas where I want this Orton effect to be applied, like in here and in here. I'm going to stay away from the shadow area, because look how it's really giving me some nice pop on this foreground light area in here. And that's kind of what I like. So I'm not going to paint it everywhere, but just in those areas. I'm going to keep it off the trees, and I could paint again in certain areas. Maybe not every area, just areas where I just want to make a little stronger, like over in here and maybe over in here and down here. And let's take a look. Here is the before, and here's the after. Isn't that cool? Now, if we want to look at this layer mask, you can see how ugly it looks by me clicking on it. That's what it looks like, okay? But again, here's the results, before and after. So I like that. We're almost done. This is the final step. We're going to come to the TK actions, and we're going to look for the add color action. Click on this. Now a color picker tool comes up, and what I want to do is I want to warm up some of the color in here, okay? So we're going to paint color. I'm going to pick some of these lighter, bolder colors in here, maybe like right in here, and click OK. And you'll notice what we have is a solid color layer with that color from the boulder with a black mask in the soft light blend mode. Now I'm going to take my brush, which is going to be a white brush, and the panel sets you up for all this. We have a white brush here. I'm going to set it to 30% opacity. And what I want to do is just hand paint in some of that warm color at 30%. Isn't that beautiful? And just give me a nice little orange glow in here. Now remember, it's at 30%, so I can paint it and I can go over areas and it will build as I go. But let's take a look. Here is the before and here's the after. But I got that nice little glow. I might put a little bit back up in here and here. But this is the fun part of editing, where you get to make creative choices, and I love it. I hope you can sense my enthusiasm. Hey, and let me know in the comment section below what you think of this technique. I think it's pretty darn cool. But here is the before, or I should say pretty darn warm. Here's the before and here's the after. Now, if you're too strong, you could take the opacity and pull it back a little bit. I might have been a little too strong there, but I'm going to come back to, I don't know, 87. Here is the before and here's the after. Now, I think we're done now. We could put a vignette around here, but I don't think it needs it, because we have this nice dark at the bottom, closing off the bottom, and then we have these trees over in here, which is nice. There's a little area right here. I probably should have took a healing brush to it. Now, I could come here if I want to and just put a blank layer above here, because I forgot it, and click this icon right here. We'll put a blank layer, and I'll type J for my healing tool. And I'll just paint this little area right there, and that'll clean that right up. I should have done that at the beginning, but there you go. I think we're done. Now let's take a look where we came from. Let me go back to Lightroom. We started out looking like this. Can you believe it? This was our starting image. And now after Photoshop and the TK8 plugin for Photoshop, we now look like this, a pretty dramatic result. Now here is a very important tip. If you have dark images, Does that mean they have to be thrown out? Not really. You can resurrect those images, and you can do it with the linear profile that you can get from Tony Kuiper, and you can use Photoshop and the TK8 plugin for Photoshop, and these are the kind of results you can achieve. Well, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial today. If you did, please give it a like and share it with your friends, and if you're not yet a subscriber to my channel, please subscribe, click that bell notification icon. Then every time I upload a new tutorial, you'll be notified about it. Well, I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me today in the Joy of Editing with Dave Gully. I'll see you all right here next time, but until then, happy editing.